What's this, John?
Comment?
What's this?
This
is, from outside of Earth, right?
This is
the
one
invaders. Does it bite or?
Oh, this is one of the wonderful. This is the first truly cheap, very high quality audio recorders. So
Here is your very, real wine.
We have digital wine. I'm not so sure, and we have analog wine. Yes. Those pheromones that we learned about tonight. The next step in Second Life are the smells that accompany human interactions. Often when you find that you're relating closely with someone, this is what you'd like to have as an experience. So aside from joking about things, when we think about the power that the Second Life world brings, it's a power of the closeness of human interaction, and one of the difficulties forever for those that are used to doing something across the network, God gave us latency, or physics. There's a delay. The farther away you are, the speed of light creates a delay. If you're in France and I'm in Berkeley and we're having a conversation across the net, there's a delay. So if you say something to me as a conversation, audio, we're all used to delays and pauses, so it doesn't seem strange. That's why telephones work. But video, there's an instant reaction. If I say something that's sad or funny and you react, if you react a little bit late, I'm not very sure about our emotional relationship. Do you think I'm telling the truth? Or how can I tell if you hear me? So all of us, in every form of human communication, make momentary gestures with the 128 muscles of our face. A little smile, a little lift of the eyebrow, or something. People fall in love in a fraction of a second because they have that emotional connection to someone else. That's what we want to be able to recreate in these worlds, these virtual worlds, these worlds of Second Life. So I think the ability to create...
Cheers, let's do a real, very real.
Our real. This is our... And we will do this again.
And we have to do it with the eyes, right?
Yes, we'll do this in Second Life.
So still it's pretty good in reality. But carry on, John.
Well,
So what you were saying?
Well, another aspect of... We are at this moment in Switzerland. So even though Switzerland, I don't think, bans smoking in restaurants, there is no smoke in this restaurant.
Right. Now you're going to tell me about France again?
France. As we would say, quelle histoire. Oh, I'm so happy to find that on the 1st of February, the law, and everyone in France obeys the law will stop the wall of smoke effect.
Which you find everywhere, yeah.
Well, and
they have a delay in restaurants, actually, to apply it. I think it's until 2008, but the law comes in power. But then they have a delay. You know how we are, right? We take some time, but the law is here. And already in trains, you can't smoke anymore. So we learn from you.
Oh, well, now the next one. New York, sinful, raging city of New York, has banned the fats used, the trans fats, the fats that are bad for you, that also make a number of fried foods taste good. So the restaurants in New York are all changing from the cheaper fats, which are bad for you, to more expensive fats, which I hope will taste as good. What will happen in France, I wonder? This will be
it's a good topic. Well, you have to visit us, and we'll test that together. I'll be happy to be your guide if you want.
I believe we will need a lot of testing.
Okay.
Many
well, I'll have all the time you want. So let's go back to the virtual life. So where do you see it going? Because you could argue. Actually, we're talking about France, but there were many initiatives. But there is actually one which was started 10 years ago, called Le Deuxième Monde.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was not online, because we didn't.
Atelier ou
no. But I mean, this to me is not like. So, what did you describe Second Life as being so revolutionary? Was the currency? Was the fact that it was open source? And what else? The fact that the users owned their content, right?
And there is
Am I wrong?
There is now open source. You are able to see the code and control the code and write the code. So the interfaces have been opened by the people that create that world of Second Life. So, in a way, when Minitel was created, source was open.
Don't tell me about the Minitel. Please, you're offending me. No, I mean, no, you're not offending me. You're making me sad.
Yes, well, in a way, everyone in France should be sad because France was 20 years ahead of the world. It was created in France.
I video podcast John Gage about Second Life, and he talks to me about Minitel.
Well, it was ugly, true. Well, the argument at the time was it replaces Le Botin. So I said, well,
right.
We don't mind.
And it was paid by the minute. We found a business model.
People built businesses. Kids built pet services.
It crashed.
Well, one could say there was it's worth studying. What was the moment at which the creation and things in Second Life created today are they were created in the world of Minitel. The graphics wasn't good, but the interactivity, there was interactivity.
It's so tough for me to, because, we missed enough. I mean, we had an opportunity which we didn't take. But so where you see it's going? Because honestly, the interface sucks right now on Second Life, right? It's terrible.
That's true.
Really. I have so many people telling me, I go there and it's ugly, and so you're all like, I like World of Warcraft interface. It's fantastic, right?
Beautiful. Well, and so one of the technical difficulty in Second Life is that the objects, as they move into the part of the computer servers that will let all of those clients sitting on the computers on the internet render to create the graphic version, the more objects that move into the scene, the more overloaded the servers become, so there's a limitation. When we built the recreation of the United States House of Representatives chamber 2 weeks ago, for the first time, we had a woman as Speaker of the House, first in U.S. history. So to honor that, we built Clear Ink, a company in Berkeley, and with they did the work, but with a collaboration with Electric Sheep and millions of us, the other design firms, it's a community of designers who all have great ideas, built this beautiful House of Representatives so that when the Speaker of the House was sworn in and the video of it was shown on the screens in Second Life, and the 80 avatars that represented Reuters and all, we didn't have Agence France Presse. I wonder, where were they? But we had press from around the world as avatars witnessing this, and then the new chairman of the Education Committee of the United States Congress, now in charge of United States education, appeared as an avatar and for 45 minutes answered very complicated, difficult questions about what would happen in the new legislation.
But come on, John, he could have made it in a chat room, right?
But that would mean typing. He doesn't want to type. He wants to talk.
So he was in video chat, right?
He spoke into Skype, his avatar. He moved his avatar to the podium. He spoke into Skype. Skype linked into Second Life. Everyone in the chamber, just as if they were in a disco, could hear his voice. So for him, it was a minimal barrier. The hardest thing for serious, practical, day-to-day interactions in Second Life is to bring those that don't view us as entertainment. They view this as a way to accomplish a human conversation that must take place now, even though someone's a long distance away. You could talk on the telephone, but this added power of the visual representation of someone else, and I believe this emotional reaction to my
Yeah, I saw your avatar. You look great.
I'm thinner.
I saw your virtual life is better.
I discovered hair is hard, I've discovered, so this is...
No, I see. So, but tell me, this looks like... I'm playing a little bit here, but this looks like doing that for media coverage, right? I mean, in France, for example, there are two political parties, two candidates for presidential who launched their presidency in Second Life. And honestly, if you take the numbers, 250,000, right, members, regular members, to correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, 95% English speaking?
No, well, I'm not sure of that number, and I really
don't
have a
know
way.
it.
I have noticed, certainly on the nude beaches, an enormous French presence.
Okay, let's say 10% French, right? That's 35,000 people. So, presidential candidate starting a campaign in Second Life in France, it's only for media coverage, right? And it works.
Well, the point for this particular, the Democrats, taking control from the Republicans, said they would accomplish in 100 hours things the Republicans had not accomplished in 12 years. And they did it.
Like what?
Minimum wage, removal of the tax exemptions for the oil companies. With Bush, an oil man, as president, what is one going to expect?
Right.
It's as if Total is in charge, Elf Aquitaine is in charge of... So, the... removal of tens of billions of dollars of tax benefits to the oil companies happened like that.
Okay, interesting.
So, from the national press point of view, not the Washington press, but the press in the rural areas of the United States who never go to Washington, because those knowledgeable about the new law in Second Life at 3 o'clock in the afternoon were waiting to answer questions. A reporter from anywhere could ask the question from a local point of view of an expert. So we thought we could democratize access to the experts.
Okay, so the big difference was that anybody could be there, and you didn't have to be physically there, right? But you could do video conferencing.
You could, but try to tell us a newspaper in a remote area of the United States that they're going to do a video conference somehow.
Okay, another example is another argument. I'm playing the bad guy here, but would be like, okay, look, I can be at the 8 o'clock journal, in France, and in front of 5 million people, not me, but the presidential candidate. That's what is it? 5, 10,000, 20,000 Second Life people compared to 5 million French.
No, but our issue, we didn't. Later, the technical capabilities of Second Life do not allow us to speak to 20,000 people. We focused entirely on press. Now, in France, centralisé, everybody, not only does everybody know everybody, everybody is within, depending on the traffic jam.
In Paris.
Everyone is quite close.
Right.
And this week, Bouillon de la Culture, I review your book, and next week you review my book. So we're going to be polite. But the provincial press doesn't have to be polite, because in Lyon, what do I think about the press in Paris? Or what? I have a different attitude. So if I arrive in Second Life from Lyon, and all the Parisian press with their little friendships are asking friendly little questions, I have an issue from Lyon that may never be asked by someone in the Parisian press. I have a chance to pose that question.
Interesting. What do you think will it change to our reality? You were saying, it's an extension of our real life, right?
The most interesting thing for me at the moment, there are two interesting things. One is, in Rwanda, in a remote school in Rwanda that is on the internet. Why? Because Rwanda is running fiber to all the schools in Rwanda. The announcement by Bernard Delanoë and Jacques Chirac that in the Île-de-France we are very proud that soon we will have fiber to all the schools. Makes me think that
to drink more beer.
Rwanda, which now has about 120 schools with fiber, I could say a terribly evil thing. And
go ahead. I see you coming.
I could say that to Mayor Delanoë and to President Chirac, that if you'd like to learn how to do it properly, you should go to Rwanda.
Okay, well, tell me about Rwanda. I'll tell them.
Fair.
I promise, John. Fair. I promise I will tell them. So what happens there? So they have this $100 Nicolas Negroponte PC, and they go to Second Life with that?
Well, the small computers, the devices Negroponte is making, are not very powerful. The graphics is not very good. They're just a very minimal beginning, but they're a beginning. The power always of a window into the Internet is the power of connectivity. So wherever you are, Rwanda or France, to be linking the students into a world where they can participate in something that's meaningful, that's the important thing. It's far too easy to play games or to look at videos that you could say, well, what is the point here? But I think Second Life changes things because you can design and build. So one idea is to have children in poor areas of Rwanda design and build objects which in the economy of Second Life they can sell. So if I'm a child in Rwanda and I design a glass or a table
or an American flag or whatever, yeah.
Or
you showed this earlier, yeah.
Anything that can be sold in Second Life, and how much is sold every day in Second Life?
Tell me.
Over $1 million US. Over
every day?
Every day. Which means that if a tiny portion of that went to children in remote villages in Africa who can design as well as anyone else can design, we could find a new way to flow money into the world's poorest areas.
Because $10 is not interesting for Americans or French, but will be for people in Rwanda.
Extremely interesting. And in Africa, if you're attempting to build real objects, the difficulty in engineering is the standards. If you ask for a piece of steel, a tubing that is this dimension, you may have a 200% variation in the size of the tubing. It's Africa. It's very difficult to get rich supplies of materials to build something. In Second Life, you have infinitely rich materials for building, which means artistic design, engineering design can flourish. Secondly, if you take real design, if I'm building the world's most advanced buildings, I use computer-aided design tools. I use AutoCAD or any of these computer-aided design software. The files they create, which are given to every municipality, every zoning authority, every government entity to examine to see if the building follows regulations about insulation and safety and structural strength, if those can be imported into Second Life, we have real life.
Wait. Was AutoCAD, you said,
AutoCAD,
object?
Yes.
So they are given for free?
If you redesigned your kitchen, you paid someone to help you design.
Right. Yeah.
They did it in AutoCAD. There's a file that describes.
Right, and then it's useless.
Take it and put it into Second Life.
I see. Yeah. So my kitchen is virtual and can be built in and modified in Rwanda.
And now it's perfectly dimensioned. The design was done in AutoCAD. The drawings were made. The carpenters built. The entire thing was more or less to the drawing. But if that drawing could be imported into Second Life and the virtual object is exactly the same as your kitchen, we could extend it to the pipe that leads from your sink, where the water is, into the water system in the building. First big rule. The pipes in every building in Paris are too thin, not a large diameter. What does that mean? Enormous energy waste by pushing water through low, small diameter pipe. Double the diameter, the friction goes down by a factor of 16. So if you're able to change the diameter of the pipe, you can save energy in France, so the Ville de la Lumière has much less power used to be a symbol of intelligent design for the world. So, how do you do that?
You'll tell me in French in a minute. I'm just saying France is a topic I really want to tell me about. But so you think it can be the because when we talk about globalization and the world is flat, and we always say, yeah, but there is an area which is left out, which is Africa, because of AIDS and because of too much poverty. And so you're saying Second Life is getting globalization and wealth to them?
First requirement is the network.
Right.
In Africa, it's very straightforward. To put fiber in the ground in Africa costs $1,000 US a kilometer. To put fiber in Paris costs $1 million US because there are pipes and sewers and all of the existing infrastructure in the streets. In Rwanda, $1,000 a kilometer, even less.
Okay.
Fiber has essentially infinite bandwidth. So it really costs. So if you use Google Earth and you measure the distance separating 400 cities in Africa, the answer is 700,000 kilometers. 700,000 times 1,000 is $700 million to put fiber to all the major cities of Africa. The United States spends about that amount in 2 days in Iraq. So, could we change the lives of everyone in Africa by bringing bandwidth ubiquitously in Africa? Yes, we could. How do I know? Because everyone in Africa, poor as Africa is voting with their money today to buy a mobile phone. The growth in mobile phones in Africa is going at a rate that is 4 times anywhere else in the world because it gives you an address. Bono has a song. U2 has a song about Africa. The streets have no name.
Yeah.
So if you have a name and a place, which is your phone, you can do business. So every small business in Africa benefits by having a means to communicate with their customers. So as we spread the internet, now who are the enemies here? Every minister of telecommunications. 53 countries, all with ministers of telecommunications who used to work for the phone company.
Right.
Not that they're evil, but now they know in their heart, you must charge a lot of money for the network. Well, this is the absolute worst thing for economic development for every country in Africa, no matter what their culture or economic circumstance. Bringing the cost of communication down means commerce, business, human relationships, reporting about what precisely is going on in Darfur or Sudan or Chad, a way for the rest of the world to have visibility into a world today that is quite invisible. Bandwidth and internet connectivity are the tools of revolution in Africa.
That's a very deep thought, John. Back to Second Life?
Back to Second Life. So once there's network, what do? Send email? You can. Meter the amount of energy being used? You can. Share the experience of a teacher in Paris with a teacher in Rwanda? You can. But beyond that, we're teaching mathematics and we're at, but beyond that, to allow creativity based on local artistic traditions, local styles, local interests. The music of Africa is a commercial force of great power, but not in Africa because nobody has any money. But when you move that, when Cesaria Evora sings in Paris and fills the hall, the same hall that Edith Piaf filled, when she sings at the Olympia and has a following in France when no one in Cap Verde had a chance of making any money except in a little cafe, you've transformed the world economy. There's power here. And so my view in this is that there's talent globally. We have friends globally. If we could name someone in every country that we have an opinion about, oh, how terrible life is in Rwanda. Can you name someone in Rwanda? The moment you're on the net and you can share an experience with someone, a mother that has a child that's 3 years old that has a fever, a mother in France or in Berkeley that has a child that's 3 years old that has a fever, instantly has an empathetic relationship with that other mother. So those one-to-one connections have a power. So Second Life, to me, is a new tool for one-to-one relationships.
I see. So how do you think it's going to change our reality? I put a point in our conversation, which was like there are people that feel better in virtual life than in real life, and it's not only Second Life, but it's also World of Warcraft. Actually, my kids, I have to stop them. The oldest is 12 years old, and he keeps, he's level 50 now, and and so you're not scared of too much virtual? You know, he could also go and date girls. Well, 12 is a little young, but...
Do you remember the German suicides? When those German romantic novels all celebrated suicide? Romantic young Germans went out and killed themselves. Same in Japan. So those that are easily influenced, human beings are complicated, and people do things for reasons that are inexplicable to other people. You're quite right. I think these new tools have new dangers in some sense. And as a very prominent neurologist pointed out this evening, Baroness Greenfield said that every experience you and I have at this moment, we would not remember this moment if the neurons in our brain did not make new connections. They are. Therefore, we remember. If you're involved in Second Life, your neurons are changing in Second Life because of your experiences in Second Life. So it's not as if it's a divorced reality. It is altering you. I've had this feeling, very strong feeling, after 4 or 5 hours in Second Life. I now come away from that world, get in a car, and I have this strange feeling that I could fly. Because I've just been flying.
I saw you flying, yeah.
Now, I don't think the other drivers realize
that you were just flying an hour
on the street with somebody who thinks he can fly and he's in a car. So the physical sensations that you have evoked by this very powerful visual metaphor of your body extended into this three-dimensional space, you've learned this now. And so it's something different. Serious gamers have a different view of the world because they're doing something. There are very famous science fiction stories about young children who believe they're playing a video game, but in reality are directing the flotillas of Earth's space fleets to destroy the enemy invaders. But they think they're playing a video game. They're faster than any adult would be because they're just so involved in it. Well, the same warrior aspects that some of these games evoke, Second Life evokes, but on a much broader, exploratory design, sexual, human interaction.
You have sex in Second Life, John?
I am an identifiable person. No, I do not. Okay. I must admit that I have flown around to some of these areas where there are...
You kept looking around.
Well, in India, they would carve the Kama Sutra into large stone sculptures that were there for thousands of years as educational texts for everyone. And I see the same things emerging in Second Life.
So tell me, just to finish with, and then let you have some wine, but so... Tell me, so because let's forget about Second Life and World of Warcraft. Like in 10 years, you know, how do you see it? I think maybe it's you who said that it's going to be as ubiquitous as the web today.
I did not say that. Said.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a doubt on that.
The impediments to this are technically the new standards in wireless, and there are some new Chinese standards in the last month or two. The new standards in wireless are allowing us to extend the wireless bandwidth enormously. But the ultimate delivery of bandwidth is a mixture of technology, money, regulation, business sense. So sometimes you end up with not an ideal result. You could have done far better. But I believe that in 10 years there will be easily 100-fold expansion in bandwidth, which means that these
100-fold,
100, if not 1,000. We must remember that fiber in the early 1990s had a great deal of bandwidth. It wasn't until erbium, a rare earth, was found to allow optical amplification, so you could put a little bit of fiber into a fiber cable, and if you blasted it with infrared, it would amplify the light. Prior to the invention of the linear optical amplifier, the global networks of fiber couldn't go that fast. Now we can put, theoretically and almost practically, thousands of independent frequencies down one fiber, amplify them uniformly across the world. In essence, it's infinite bandwidth. The wireless is coming along to be at the endpoints, the method of distributing this. So in sum, yes, we will in 10 years have an enormous amount of bandwidth. We will have an enormous amount of storage. We will have enormous amounts of computational power. So the story I think that might illustrate this best, in 2008 in Beijing, everyone will go with a little Olympic cap into the stadium for the Olympics. In the center, slightly off-center, of the rings of the Olympic Committee, and they will be paid for those rings. No rings of the Olympic Committee go unpaid for. There will be a tiny camera. Samsung today, 2006, ships a 9-megapixel cell phone camera. Those small chips, 2008, will be 9, 10 megapixels. That's enough.
Huge. Yeah.
Then 100,000 of them as facets of a eye of a fly, but inverted, looking down on the field, allow us to construct in real time the polygons that represent the soccer or football player, the javelin thrower, the runner. In fact, if you take the easiest example, as the shot putter releases the shot, this heavy ball, at that moment it's a ballistic object. Give me 40 milliseconds of image. I know precisely its trajectory. It's just physics. I know where that shot put will go. And I can compute the shot put's camera eye view of what it sees as it flies. A little bit more difficult for a javelin because of wind. A little bit more difficult again for a soccer ball because they bend.
And difficult with the business model because actually you've probably seen that it's forbidden to have digital cameras in those areas because they want to keep the rights for TV channels, right?
They can't arrest us all.
Okay, no, I agree.
So even though some 5,000 Dutchmen had to take their pants off when they went to a football game because it had the symbol of the wrong sponsor, they can't take 100,000. So what will happen then is an expansion of sports revenues because everyone now, with all the objects in the sports field as very high resolution Second Life characters, everyone will be able to watch the part of the game or the competition or that athletic performance from whatever point of view they want. So in my case, in the United States context, when I was in my high school, I played in the water polo team. I'm interested in water polo. So I'm only interested in certain parts of water polo. I was a goalie. So I want to watch the water polo game with the Hungarians and the Russians and the French and the wonderful stars of water polo, but I really want to focus on the performance of the goalie. And the same in soccer.
Right.
So everyone has their favorite. This allows millions of people to have an individual camera designed for them to watch what's going on in sports. And if you don't think the sports market is large, think about pornography. So there's a new market here enabled by new creative tools, enabled by what at the moment is Second Life, but will become a merger of the gaming and graphic environment with these interactive and controlled cameras that all of us will be able to fly wherever we'd like to see whatever we'd like.
How about governments? How about, God, who is controlling that? Because right now, you have those local powers, the French government and the U.S. government invading Iraq.
Well, the very first invasion, think of the invasion by Colbert. One cannot tax the peasants of France unless one measures what properties they own, which led to boundary lines and a complete abstraction of the complicated human relationships among all the peasants of France who, in real life, allowed the pasture to be used by the cousin for the sheep, and in the winter used it for somebody else, and you could cross it, and only if you were married into the family. And all.
Of course.
Colbert, rational, said to tax them, forget all that. I want to know who owns it. And people would say, well, no one owns it. Well, I'm sorry, said Colbert, we're the government, and somebody owns it. So it was the rationalization of the landscape that led to the taxation schemes and the power of the government. You can't tax unless you can name. So in this world, the same thing will happen. Everything the government can begin to impose rules of naming and identity, and from that yields money. Today, Second Life, just today, with over $1 million US every day being spent in Second Life, real money, the governments have suddenly said, who gets the tax revenue? The woman that owns over $1 million of real estate in Second Life lives in Germany.
Yeah,
but the computers are in San Francisco. Who pays taxes? And every day this money is flowing, and it's growing, it's growing, it's growing. So, yes, you're quite right. I don't know the answer in this, but those of us that think this is an important area that, just as with the Internet, should not be restricted and should be allowed to expand, that same freedom for innovation, for invention, for entrepreneurship must be preserved inside the Second Life or the other environments like it. I think it's going to be a fountain of productivity, of creation, of economic value, is because it responds to human needs.
So we should all go and start spending 8 hours a day in there and starting businesses and owning land. And it's already too late. Are we late already?
Are you a good singer?
Well, no.
Well, I wouldn't suggest starting a singing career. Are you a good designer? Perhaps. Are you a good dancer? Perhaps. Are you a good lovemaker? Perhaps. So all of those things that involve, are you an athlete with a particular capability or a skill or a way to demonstrate?
You mean real or virtual?
Real. But the process of coaching someone in any sport involves taking their bodily knowledge of what they're doing and changing a little bit. If only you leaned back when you ran. If only you leaned forward. If only you did this. Change the stride. How can you teach that? Well, Second Life is a brand new way of teaching that. And one of the discussions tonight was about haptic interfaces. Interfaces in which you feel something. I've had experiences over the years with medical schools. To teach surgery, there are only so many cadavers, dead bodies, that a medical school can afford. So medical schools have built systems that have little motors and wires and pulleys connected to the scalpel or the needle that you use to probe into a brain, and the feeling you have when you move that needle or move the scalpel is exactly the feeling you would have cutting a real human being. As a training mechanism, the military uses, of course, for training people in flying. So these techniques of teaching people to use manual movements, I think, are going to expand. And the moment haptic interfaces enter the world of Second Life, well, of course, the pornography industry in Second Life will explode. There's sensation now involved in interaction of virtual.
I can feel it now.
Can you feel it now?
Oh, yeah, I can feel you flying and everything.
All of the amusement parks of the world found that if you take a chair and put a little bit of hydraulics in it, and then you put on a screen a roller coaster or you're skiing St. Moritz, and you can make it feel real. It's not hard. So I think Second Life has capabilities, greatly unexplored capabilities, for creating the physical involvement of a real body in a virtual world.
Amazing. Thank you so much, John, for sharing this with us.
Thank you for the wine.
Well, let's have it now. Thanks.